Hey, what's up, guys? All right, so today I'm going to talk to you about the second part of how to manifest anything, right? And obviously, as I said, I'm not like a manifestation expert in the sense that I don't teach this, but I do know the principles. I've read a lot on it and I've manifested some crazy things. And I'm just kind of outlining a few of the things I've learned, and hopefully, they can help you. Hopefully, they can help you in your journey, right? So, first things first. I already went through part one, which is visualization. You can watch that video. Part two is following the breadcrumbs. I'm going to give you an example of a trip I took to Cannes, France. I think I mentioned it in the first video, right? But I'm going to mention some details I didn't give you the last time, right? So when I was going to university, I went to university in Washington, D.C. I went to Howard University, right? And I ended up studying film in the School of Communication. And there was an opportunity presented in one of our film classes by a guy named Robert Ford, who is the founder of a internship program called Creative Mind in Cannes, where you get to go to Cannes, France, to the world's biggest film festival and experience it in three ways. You can either do what's called the internship experience, where you work with a company like Paramount or somebody at the festival. You have another one called the short film corner, where you go to France and you have 2 weeks to produce a short film, which is then screened at Cannes and you can win some prizes. And thirdly, you can go doing what's called a networking experience, where you have full access to the festival and you can just go around, network like crazy, try and pitch your script, try and pitch yourself as an actor, whatever, right? And I did the third one because after talking to Rob on the phone, Rob said, based on my personality, that sounded like me, right? So I wanted to get into the program and apply to get into the program, and the program cost is 2,500 US. But with the program, you got your hotel for 2 weeks. You got access to the festival, access to the screenings, and basically all that cool stuff, right? So it's a really good value for money when I think about it. And after my first call with Rob, what, such a good talk, he took 500 off my course, right? So I needed 2,000 US dollars, right? So I'm a student in school and I'm like, all right, I need to find 2,000 US dollars. But I was so excited at the prospect of going to France. I just fantasize about eating crepes and hanging out on the palais. What was that? I'm outside and I saw creatures running around. I was just like fantasizing about eating French food and hanging out on the palais and watching the movie in Cannes and clapping at the end when everybody's done, and probably meeting some of the actors. I actually met Michael Fassbender at Cannes before he became Magneto. But I just saw it so clearly in my mind. Just walking through the streets of Cannes, being back in Europe. That would be my second time in Europe, and I just felt it. It was so real to me, and I said, "Yeah, man, I'm definitely going. I just don't know how." So because I was on that frequency where I was feeling it and expecting it, which is like a big part of the first step, is to feel it and expect it to happen. Don't worry about the details because the universe is going to set you up with the details, right? So what ended up happening now was that I went to a professor of mine's office. Her name is Professor Saunders, and she was one of those professors that was like pivotal in helping me when I came back. Because I'd left school for a while and I came back and I was trying to find my way, and she really helped me to just kind of ease it within myself as a creative, to accept who I am. And she was like a mentor to me, right? So I went to her office and I said, I have this opportunity to go to France. I got into the program, but I need 2,000 US dollars. And she said, okay, Marcus, I heard something today. She's like, we're having our first ever business plan competition for the School of C, where you write a business plan proposal, and if the proposal is good, it can win a prize. Guess what the first prize was? First prize was $2,000. Exactly what I needed. So I was like, all right, that sounds like me. I said, when is the deadline? She's like, it's in 3 days. It was like 3 days or 2 days, but really, really short. And I'd never written a business plan before. And I was like, all right, I'm going to get it done. Right? Because this was what's called a breadcrumb. Right? What's the exact figure I needed? $2,000. I spoke to my professor. She said, there's this competition for $2,000. Right? So I scramble and put all my heart and soul into writing this business plan over the next 2 days, and I submit it on time, right? Once I submitted it, some time passed, and then there was the award ceremony, or that thing you go to where you see who wins or whatever, right? So when I went there, I'm standing in the back somewhere, never been in this kind of competition before, and they're calling out the names. And the first runner-up is John Brown, second runner-up is Karen Smith, and third place is so-and-so, and second place is so-and-so. And I was like, hold on, they said second place, third place, runner-up. So I was like, this means I won. And then they're like, and first place, first place goes to Marcus Bird, winning the first ever business plan competition, School of Sea, $2,000. I was mind blown, right? Won this business plan competition, and then I was basically able to go to France because I had some cash, enough to like fly there and that kind of thing, right? So what happened was a breadcrumb was dangled in front of me, because what can happen is that if I didn't have the frequency of belief, I could have just said to myself, oh, I don't know how to write a business plan, I can't enter that. But in the moment, I was like, I understood that I needed $2,000, and this was the way the universe was saying, you can access it, right? And this is the way that breadcrumbs tend to come to you, but it's not always that direct, Sometimes you get offered an opportunity or a piece of equipment, or you offered a trip or something, but it's usually something a little bit outside the normal, and it's usually right around the time you're really trying to make some stuff happen. So what I realized is that if you're trying to figure out what the breadcrumbs are, the best thing for you to do is to understand what you're trying to manifest and be very open to whatever comes to you. Like, if people ask you questions, if somebody reaches to you out of the blue, if all these things happen, these are the breadcrumbs of the universe trying to do the matrix math to make what you want a reality. Because there's a book called The Science of Getting Rich, written by Wallace D. Wattles in like the early 1900s, where he says that there's a formless thing that permeates the universe, and thought, once impressed upon this formless matter, must create whatever you impress upon this thought. And he's like, man creates nothing except his thoughts, but thoughts impressed upon this formless substance creates reality as we know it, right? So once you're impressing your thought at a certain frequency on the formless substance of matter, which is reality, right, everything starts to align in its own way to make what you want become a reality. Now, you may not be able to see it in your peripheral vision, but it's happening. And I can give you like dozens of examples, and I'm pretty sure you've experienced those things, where amazing alignments happen. Sometimes alignments are obvious, right? Like, for example, 2 years ago, I just got on this kick about this camera called the Fuji X-H1. It's a YouTuber was using a camera. His name is Samuel Lintaro. He's Japanese German, and he's like a photographer and videographer, and he was making these cool videos, and I was like, I just love the quality of this video in low light. What camera is that? I was researching it. I found out it was a Fuji X-H1. Now, for context, Jamaica is not a Fuji country. When you're buying cameras in Jamaica, it's Nikon, Canon, or Sony, right? Most of the cameras sold here is just Nikon, Canon, Sony. Majority Nikon and Canon, right? No Fuji cameras are ever sold in Jamaica. So I'm researching this Fuji X-H1 camera, fantasizing about it, thinking of all the cool stuff I'm going to make with the camera. And then out of the blue, a guy who I had messaged about something a couple months before messages me and says, he's like, yo dude, are you interested in a Fuji X-H1 camera? And I was like, Fuji X-H1 specifically? And he's like, yeah, I have a camera and whatever. Now, I think I was so blown aback, because this was literally the universe putting something on a platter. And I was like, how much is it? And he's like, 1,500 US. And that was outside of my budget. And I was like, I don't know if I can wing that. But then in my mind, I was like, yo, you're thinking about the X1, and then he messaged you. Oh my God, what a coincidence, right? Even though I'm aware of these things, I wasn't as sharp as I am now, right? So he eventually posted the camera on Facebook, and he posted for 1,000 US, $500 less, and I could have easily paid the 1,000, right? And when he posted it on the group now, I'm like hemming and hawing all day. I was like, am I gonna buy it? Am I not gonna buy it? I don't know Fuji cameras. I don't have a lens. I don't know this. I don't know that. Right? Long story short, the camera got sold and I never got to use it. Right? Sometimes the universe puts everything on a platter. Like sometimes they give you a breadcrumb, like a contest to enter or a person to call, or you might get like this really really good idea that's a little scary but you know it's going to work. Those are the breadcrumbs. And sometimes universe give you the whole blood not bread, as we say. Sometimes you get the whole bread in your hand. Like, you want the XH1 camera, he messaged you about it. The only thing I didn't do was I didn't ask him the best price. I should have been like, what's your best price? And he would have probably dropped it by 500 and then I bought it. And it really burned me because, I mean, for months I felt bad about it because this was like during the lockdown time and I had all these things I wanted to do. And I was like, oh my God, he could have been doing the photography. Oh my God, he could have been doing the videography. Oh my God, he could have been. There's so many things I could have done with the camera that I'd planned to do that I saw in my mind. And the universe, understanding that I was on the frequency, was trying to enable me to do that by literally handing me the camera at a time when I could easily afford it, right? I had a little gig going on that was paying me well, and I could have just paid $1,000 for the camera, right? So, point I'm trying to make here is that the part two is to watch for those breadcrumbs. But sometimes the breadcrumbs are not that clear. Like you don't really know specifically what it is or why it's coming, right? And you have to be very open to what's going on. One of the biggest opportunities I had in like the last decade was to produce basically produce a campaign for Smirnoff Japan, right? It was a big project, probably 100 people involved. I had to organize and help direct, and we're shooting 3 commercials in 2 weeks that we're going to air in Japan for these 3 new products that Smirnoff was releasing: Smirnoff coffee, Smirnoff pineapple, and Smirnoff grapefruit, right? 3 Smirnoff drinks that they were releasing, and they had a Jamaican concept and massive project, right? But I could have sabotaged it because I'd spent about 3 or 4 months chanting and meditating because I was trying to change my life. I was visualizing myself doing things with people, going to dinners and traveling and going, and I even saw myself staying in like a penthouse suite somewhere, and I just wanted to elevate my life, right? And again, at this time I don't know as much as I know now. And what started happening was a series of crazy things. I'm going to get back to the Smirnoff thing. But the first crazy thing that happened was like I wasn't feeling good, and I was like, I said to my mom at the time, I was like, yo, I think I need to go to New York, you know? And I just went to New York for like, I think 4 weeks, 5 weeks or something like that, right? When I went to New York, my aunt, who lives in Boston, was in New York. And she said, oh, Marcus, come visit me or whatever. She was staying in this place called the Manhattan Club. Now, I have videos on my channel of the Manhattan Club, so you can search through my videos and look at the Manhattan Club video. The Manhattan Club is like a luxury hotel. And she was staying in a penthouse suite. And I was like, yo, this place is fantastic. And she's like, yo, if you want to get 2 days here, I can get it for you. Because she does like a timeshare thing. So she has a certain number of days per year. So she got 2 days in his penthouse suite for me. And not only that, she said if you have a brethren who you trust, he can get a day. And the brethren that I chose to link up, I had told him like probably 2 weeks, 3 weeks before that we should be chilling in penthouse suites. I kid you not. So that was the first weird manifestation. I was like, this is crazy. And then there are some travel things I wanted to do, all these kind of other things I wanted to do. And I remember we're talking about the breadcrumbs. So what ended up happening now was I come back to Jamaica and I want to travel, right? And I need money to travel. You know, you always need money to travel. And if you want to travel internationally, you need a good bit of money. And I was like, I was just seeing it happen. I was seeing myself traveling, seeing myself going on the plane, seeing myself, you know, like walking on the streets of different cities and all this kind of stuff, right? And then I got a text on Facebook from a friend of mine who lives in Japan. And she said to me, she said, Marcus, you know, some friends of mine here, they're trying to do a production in Jamaica. I don't know what it is, but I showed them your website and I think they want to talk to you. I don't even know what's going on, right? And in my mind, if she had said that to me 5 months before, I would have been like, these people aren't serious. I don't want to talk to them. But because I started understanding that something was happening, I was like, yeah, man, I'll have the meeting with them. And it turned out to be this like, just amazing experience, paid very, very well. And it set up the ability for me to travel anywhere I wanted to fall a while. But I knew what the breadcrumb was. I was like, I think this is setting up what I want. Right? So sometimes it's like these sprinkles of things. So my aunt being there and being able to go to the penthouse suite was like a manifestation of something I saw in my mind, but it was so crazy, right? If I didn't go to New York, I wouldn't have seen her there. She wouldn't have been in the penthouse suite, and then I wouldn't have gotten 2 days there, right? And then if I had not listened to my friend talking about the project the friends was trying to do, I didn't know it was some like big campaign they were trying to shoot, I would have ignored it and then lost my opportunity to earn the funds that would allow me to travel. So what I'm saying is that like when it comes to following the breadcrumbs, this is kind of like how it happens. Now it's different for everybody. Sometimes you actually just find money. Sometimes I've heard people just have stocks and then the stock value goes up, or they find some old painting that they thought was worthless and it's worth like 100,000 US and all this kind of crazy stuff, right? But the breadcrumbs come once your frequency, step one, is impressing upon the formless stuff that makes up the universe, right? And then the universe is now organizing as best as it can relative to the environment you're in, because everything is different. I find that if I'm in a big city, things move like really fast because maybe there are more chess pieces that the universe can move. So if I'm fantasizing about going to a penthouse suite, and as soon as I land in New York there's a penthouse suite there, I'm in one, you understand? But if I wanted to be like in a penthouse apartment in Jamaica and I'm fantasizing about that, maybe it would take different kind of chess pieces to move it around, you understand? But it doesn't matter. The point I'm trying to make is that those breadcrumbs start the process. The breadcrumbs are the things you have to watch out for, and you never know what the breadcrumb is. And whenever I'm in a high activation mode and people start talking to me out of the blue and people start asking me to do things and opportunities start popping up out of the blue, they're usually very, very simple things that lead to larger things. So for example, the conversation with my friend over Facebook was a very simple conversation, very light. It had nothing to do with the size or the scope of the project. It was just like, I don't know what them doing, but them look like them want to do a project in Jamaica. It was said like that. And I was like, these people don't sound serious. But it was a serious project, right? I took it seriously. I didn't take it lightly because I understood what was happening. There were a series of these manifestations. And I'm going to be honest with you. After that project, I got so scared by what I'd earned and how everything had happened that I kind of started to get frightened. I didn't understand what my next move was, and I kind of started sabotaging myself because I didn't really know how to keep doing what I was doing. I didn't understand this kind of manifestation or the level of it, because way more stuff happened that I'm not even going into. But it was just like, it was starting to scare me because it was like magic. I'd think of something and it started happening and I got frightened, right? But now with more experience and having done this in different ways, with different types of goals, there are always these breadcrumbs, right? Always breadcrumbs. There's always a person you meet who will suggest something that takes a step that's very easy for you to do. There's always somebody who may want a project that's going to pay you for a couple months that will help you to do the thing you want to do. There's always going to be a big idea or epiphany that, if you believe in it, will get you to the place you want to go. Or maybe there's a conduit, like there's a contest, which is the exact figure. I want to trip around the world in 2020 of all times. But I remember before I was trying to figure out a way to travel, and I was putting it out there, and I was seeing myself traveling. I'd come from Bangkok a few months earlier, and I was like, I know this can happen. It must can happen. And I got this email saying, do you want $5,000 US to travel the world? And I was like, yeah. And as soon as I entered the thing, I knew I won, right? Crazy stuff. So what I'm trying to say is that it doesn't always happen like that. And like I said, I'm not an expert in the sense that I'm not teaching this to anybody, but I know what I've done, and I know how it works, and I'm trying to get better at it, because staying on that frequency is not easy. It's not easy if you're anxious or stressed. It's not easy if you're not happy in your life. It's not easy to maintain that consistent upbeat feeling if you're not consistently upbeat about your own reality. So that's stuff that you have to work out. But usually if you have like a big interesting goal that you're aiming for over time, that you're really excited about, you can maintain that happiness and that positivity. As I said in my last video, you just need to maintain it 51% of the time. You don't have to be like giddy and joyful 24/7. It's just like being happy enough. So even if your mood drops in a day, bring it up. Listen to some music. I like listening to like cool 80s, 90s music. Sometimes that brings up my vibe, and then I'm back, right? So that's really it, right? Follow the breadcrumbs, right? When they start sprinkling, when they start coming in front of you, and this is not just a money thing. Sometimes you might be like, I want to meet somebody, I want a relationship, or I want to move, or I want, like, whatever it is you want. There's going to be a breadcrumb. There's going to be a suggestion. There's going to be something that someone says that you're not going to take it seriously, and then you realize what it is. Like when somebody messages you out of the blue and says, yo, you want an XH1 camera? And then you're like, what? That's obvious, right? But sometimes somebody might be like, you think you can do this gig? I don't know what they want to do. And you're like, yeah, I think I can do it. Boom, they're paying you loads of money, and now all that travel stuff you've been fantasizing about for like 5 months is about to happen. You understand? So follow the breadcrumbs is one of those powerful things. I mean, I might make another video that's a bit more concise, but this is essentially one of those things where when it starts to happen, you just do what you gotta do, right? And just have complete faith and trust. I'll probably break it down more relative to me going to Bangkok, because in my mind, in my spirit, I said, yo, if I'm on the ground in Bangkok, everything's gonna happen. I just knew it. And when I was in Bangkok, everything I wanted to happen happened. Again, to the point where it almost frightened me, because I said, once I'm there, everything will happen. I'll get all my locations, I'll get my videographer, all the things that I didn't have. I said, once I'm there, I'll get them, because the frequency and the size of the city is going to bring the people towards me. And this is a way you can actually command the things to come into your life, because it's like, if you walk with that knowing that you're going to get the things you want, and then you follow the signals, it tends to happen almost effortlessly. I think the struggle we have with ourselves as people is we struggle to, one, believe it's possible, two, we don't follow the breadcrumbs, and three, depending on what we're doing in our lives, we may not have the excitement that we can maintain around this overall goal. So it's a kind of spiritual training, because if you really want to change certain things, you're going to have to feel good about it. And if you feel terrible about your life, most of the time, that's all your reality is going to be, unless you get lucky, right? Most people start to change their reality by changing how they feel about it. Even if you're on the same bed, if you're beside the same person you don't like, or you're doing the same job you don't like, imagine going to work the next day and feeling completely different. You're upbeat, you're happy, your boss isn't so crabby. Everybody's like, what's changed? The only thing that changes is your perspective on reality. But then the people around you start changing, but you're less crabby, you're more vibesy. And then the boss is probably like, I didn't know you were like this, I thought you were very insular and weird, but you're kind of cool. Come to the country club with us. And you start talking about business. Then the boss finds out you can DJ. You start DJing. And, I'm just making this up. But the point I'm trying to make is that it is not easy to shift into that positive space. But it is essential that when you're visualizing, following the breadcrumbs and all these things, that you learn how to change your state of being, and then try and maintain that 51% or more of the time, because you need to stay on that vibration, right? To make the things come to you. Even today, I realized that I went to this cafe and I was sitting at the table with a young woman, and I was just like, yo, I feel like I could have spoken to her and chit-chatted, but I haven't done it in a while, right? I could just ask her some questions, and when she was leaving, I realized she was kind of like looking at me a little bit, and she even said goodbye to me when she was walking away, and I was like, oh, dude, you did it again. The universe put the gal on a platter. She's right in front of you, chilling, typing on her laptop, very relaxed, because I asked if I could sit at her table, and she said, yeah, you can sit here. So anyways, follow the breadcrumbs, and to recap, visualize what you want in a fun way with as much joy as possible. Visualize with expectancy, like I can't wait for this to happen. Give thanks for it. Well, that's going to be the third video, is the gratitude part, right? But give thanks for what you haven't received yet, and then follow the breadcrumbs. So as soon as the universe starts dropping these little hints to you, as soon as you start getting the phone calls or the suggestions, like, yo, have you made any of those shirts in a while? Shirts make money. Have you released your album? Album makes money. Maybe you should go to New York and talk to this person, and you're like, oh, New York flight and whatever. But then somebody's like, but then no, you decide to go to New York, and all of a sudden somebody's going to leave New York and needs their apartment watched for 2 weeks. Now you have an apartment in New York. You understand? Do these things, and magic is gonna start happening. All right, it's the end of part 2. Maybe a part 3 is coming.